Hi, I'm Catherine Silvestri, an investigative counsel with the Office of Inspector General. I will be presenting slides 31 through 36. In the first three slides, I will describe examples of investigations into violations of LSC regulations conducted by our office, and I will also describe best practices for preventing regulatory violations. These are four examples of regulatory investigations conducted by our office. In the first example, a grantee employee that was unaware of LSC restrictions regarding political activity inserted a partisan political cartoon into a pamphlet that was produced by the grantee. And the second example involves a few cases that we've investigated. These examples included grantee employees that receive on their work emails an email encouraging them to support a particular political candidate. The emails were sent from other grantee employees. In one case, we found that the email was sent intentionally by the grantee employee. In the second case, we found that the grantee employee did not see the email intentionally. They sent it from an outside email address and simply did not review the contact list before they sent the email to other grantee employees. In the third example, a grantee employee knowingly used grantee time and resources to assist clients going through removal hearings without the knowledge of other grantee employees and without the knowledge of the executive director. In the fourth example, we found that a grantee had a payment practice for a particular PAI contract attorney that resulted in the PAI contract attorney receiving double payment. The attorney received payment one time through hourly invoices and through a second time through a settlement award for the same hours that they've been invoiced for. This case resulted in questioned cost in order to recoup LSC funds. This is a list of best practices aimed at preventing violations of LSC regulations. First, create robust regulatory policies and procedures. Don't just have employees review LSC regulations upon hiring. Create policies and procedures that are aimed at informing staff what the restrictions are and aimed at preventing future violations. Implement training at least annually on the regulations. Some of the examples of regulatory investigations we described in the earlier slide described grantee employees that violated LSC regulations due to being unaware of the restriction. We believe trainings at least annually would likely have prevented these issues. Update staff when regulations change or new guidance is released by LSC. Create a practice to inform all grantee employees when regulations are changed or when LSC releases new guidance. Encourage staff to report potential regulation violations or concerns. Grantee policies and trainings should encourage staff to report potential regulatory concerns. If the employee is reporting a violation that may be intentional, ensure the employee is protected with a whistleblower policy. Conduct occasional internet searches for indicators of regulatory violations by employees. If a grantee suspects a violation by an employee, conduct internet searches to determine if indicators exist. In these next three slides, I will describe a fraud case derived from a conflict of interest scheme, as well as other case examples with problematic conflicts of interest. I will also describe best practices to prevent these types of issues from happening at your program. Several OIG investigations have included conflicts of interest that were used for the purpose of carrying out a fraud scheme. In this example, the executive director of a subgrantee had her husband register a cleaning business with the state. The executive director did not report to the CFO or the board of directors of the subgrantee that the cleaning business was owned by her husband when she contracted with the business. Each month, the executive director would have the subgrantee pay the business as a way to direct additional money to her family. The cleaning business never actually provided a cleaning service to the subgrantee. An additional example of an investigation that found a conflict of interest used to carry out a fraudulent scheme involved an employee that directed a grantee to contract with a vendor preferred by the employee. In return for influencing the contract, the vendor paid the employee a kickback. The examples provided in the previous slide involved conflicts of interest used to carry out a fraudulent scheme. Other conflicts of interest that have been investigated by the OIG have resulted in questioned cost due to the use of LSC funds to benefit a grantee employee through a conflict. This is a list of best practices for preventing and detecting all problematic conflicts of interest. First, have a conflict of interest policy and a nepotism policy that describes steps that need to be taken when a conflict exists, in both contracting as well as hiring. Also, have a whistleblower policy that protects staff that report problematic conflicts. The next 3 items that are listed are items that should be found in both the conflict of interest and nepotism policies. First, require disclosure of conflicts by employees and members of the board of directors. Second, if a conflict involves the executive director, require disclosure to the board of directors. Third, require employees and/or board members to recuse themselves from decision-making when a conflict exists. And finally, in general, just encourage reporting of known conflicts by regularly reminding staff of the conflict of interest, nepotism, and whistleblower policies.